You know what I was
Yeah.
thinking about the other day was the fact that, like, how much we've changed since our first episode of Baddies.
Oh, yeah, girl.
And if you would have, 1, told me today that it evolved into this, and 2, that we'd be ending it, or 3, that, we'd be ending it to not ending it, but, like, separating to grow outside of, like, what we ever thought possible.
Mhm,
Like, when we made this, we were in Riley's dorm apartment at SDSU,
mhm.
and we were, like, sitting on her bed. I remember, like, her palm tree tapestry was behind us. That was our backdrop,
Oh my
and we were
god.
recording on my little G7X camera,
Mhm.
and we were like, "We're gonna talk about college and our experience and just have it be quirky and funny because we're just quirky little young adults."
Hello, baddies. Welcome back to Baddies Mean Business. And as you can probably see in the title, this is a very, very special episode where me and Kenzie say farewell. It is completely friendly. We are still bestie friends. We still talk all the time. There's nothing like it's nothing like that, y'all.
No.
But we're gonna just talk about today about what we're gonna be doing in this new chapter of Baddies Mean Business and sharing what we're really excited about in the future. We'll also be doing our very last Baddie Briefing, which is so sad. I can't
So
believe
sad.
this. Kenzie, how does it feel? How's it feel, girly girl?
It feels definitely weird. We've been saying that for, like, the last couple weeks, thinking about this and talking through it and deciding if it's truly, like, the right decision for the both of us, and, ultimately, that's kind of what we concluded to, but I think that just having each other on our team, like, the whole time, throughout the whole process has, like, made it a lot easier. Obviously, like Riley said, we are, like, still besties for the restie, and if anything, our friendship is always put first, and which is why we also came to this decision, and so, like, always prioritizing our friendship is, like, the biggest
Mhm.
factor of doing this podcast and doing anything, and so, yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
weird, though. We both been
Yeah.
saying that.
We definitely so this Baddies Doing Business started like over 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And so we've been doing this for quite a bit. And so we were just looking back and like when we started Baddies New Business, for those who have listened from the very beginning, we were college kids, like
Mhm.
seniors in college, kind of still navigating our careers, who we were as people. The topics that we talked about early on were a bit different than what we've talked about closer to now. And we've evolved as people. And so
Mhm.
I think that's what we're kind of thinking about right now is we'll kind of walk through just like how this has all gone down from the beginning, but that's kind of what's been running through our mind for the
Yeah.
last weeks, months, whatever. Just like
Mhm.
what's that next step look like?
Exactly.
And so, before we jump into what has happened, we're gonna do an honorary final baddie briefing together. And
Yes.
so, Kenzie, you want to go ahead and get us started with your quote of the week?
Sure. So mine, like most weeks, have been kind of, along the same message as the podcast episode. So this quote is by, I think it's Hiba Nazar. And it says, "There is power in ending. It takes you to the beginning of what is meant for you." And obviously that just very fitting for this
Mhm.
podcast. So, yeah, I think the message just in general speaks to me a lot just because you forget that when you end something, it's not always, you know, this big catastrophe, and it has to, like, result in something so bad and negative when it actually can be really beautiful because it's taking you to the beginning of what is meant for you, literally what it says in the quote, and, like, allowing you to start fresh and clean, and yeah, so I thought
Yeah,
it was
that's
very fitting.
I think so too. And that's kind of like how we wanted to make sure that this was everyone knew that that's what's happening right now. It's just we've seen so many very ugly like breakups between like
Mhm,
co-founders, between partners, between
mhm.
marriages. I mean, one example, Call Her Daddy, Alex and Sophia. Like
Yeah.
that was like always running in the back of my mind when we were thinking about what to do next. And so that was never going to be the case though because
Mm-mm.
Kenzie and I have been besties since fourth grade. Like that,
Yeah.
you can't trump that when it comes to
Mm-mm,
something like this, you know?
mm-mm. No, you cannot.
Yeah, so I'm glad that me and Kenzie have had gone through so many levels of growth and change and chapters, and so it's
Mhm.
kind of really awesome that we got to have this chapter together, so
Yeah.
that we can be even better and help each other even more when it comes to this next one.
Exactly, and we only ever wanted since the get-go was to just have fun with it, and as soon as, like not that it has ever not been fun because it's always been fun, it's just it just looks a lot different than when we went into it, and we're like Riley said, we're evolving and we're growing, and we wanna talk about different things, and there's just so many factors, which, again, we'll get into later in the episode, but just to Riley's point, she's absolutely correct, and yeah.
Hmm.
But anyways, your quote of the week, what is it?
Okay. So my quote's kind of in the similar light. So, okay. It might sound too, I don't want it to come off as cheesy, but I really think it's cool what it says. So it says, "You only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough." And so that was by Mae
Ooh.
West. She's an old Hollywood actress. I don't know a lot of context in her background. Sorry if that's really if she's there's a lot of context in her background that doesn't really live up to this quote, but the words in itself do a lot for me. So I think I agree, and I think every time me and Kenzie think of these decisions, that's really what it's kind of we have such limited time. I feel like acting quickly and doing things based off our intuition and just our feelings, and
Mhm.
trusting that is something that I feel like is really powerful, and we're really practicing to do. So,
Absolutely.
mhm.
Amen, sister.
Yes.
Pop
So
off.
your favorite girl, the
Oh,
product
goodness.
queen, the brand queen. What is your favorites for this week?
I hopped on the bandwagon with, the Alani Nu drinks. Well, obviously, I've had them before. Riley put me on their pre-workout years ago. And anyways, but they have, like, the Kim K new drink, like, called Kim Aid or something like that, and I just tried it, and it was actually so good, and I'm going to go back to Target and get more. And then obviously I had to throw in a product too. I've been loving the La Roche-Posay just double wear or double repair face moisturizer is what it's called, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's just a good basic, good ingredient moisturizer that I've been really enjoying. So love that. What else? I feel like we've had a lot of fun things go on. I obviously, like just to briefly recap, drove across country to like back to Kansas because I was visiting home in Washington for about a month. And I drove my dad out with my car the whole 25 hours. It was insane, but it was so fun. And then since I've been back, Josue and I have gone to the Mariners game versus the Royals game that they had here in KC, and that was so fun. We also have just been spending time with friends and catching up with people who I hadn't seen in like over a month and spending quality time with Mila. So yeah, just a little recap. That's what's been going on too, and I've been like all wrapped up in my favorites. So
Mhm. I know. Lucky me, I get to access her expertise, and you guys can access it too through her TikToks. She's been popping off on her TikToks. And please send them to Selena Gomez because
yes,
Rare
please.
Beauty is her vibe.
It's my
Everybody.
number one want of a PR, like, brand. Like, I want to be on their PR PR list very badly.
Mhm. We're manifesting that right now.
Yes, we are. We are.
For me and my favorites, I'll go through them. So I've been entering my golf girl era. And so my cousin Morgan, she's always golfed. She grew up golfing, going to golf camps, and she's taking me to the driving range while we were growing up. I didn't really have appreciation for it. And so now I am, and I've been learning a lot. I've been spending a lot of time on golf TikTok, learning where to position the ball, the rules of the courses. Like, there's so many nuances and rules. And so I really have appreciation for it. And you get to wear cute golf skirts too, which are
Obviously.
so comfortable. I don't understand why every girl doesn't just wear a golf skirt every single day because it's just so freeing. Um,
They're so comfortable
yeah. And so what
and
the
cute.
right? And so part of like my golf girl entering it, I've been like a quote quote caddy in training for Morgan. And so I always say that as a joke, and people think I'm serious when we're like golfing with people. And I'm like, oh no, I'm really just like I'm just here to drive the cart and learn what clubs to use for what yardage and all that. And so this last time we went golfing,
We got paired up. So it's just Morgan as the golfer, me as the driver, and then more we got paired up with three other guys. Which is freaking fun. You just get to meet people
Yeah.
and just golf all day. And we did 18 holes. Um, and one of them was a dermatologist. And so you already know that we asked him questions. We're like, okay, what do you use? What do you recommend? Like, what's going on? And that enters into my next favorite. So my next favorite I've been enjoying is called Egyptian Magic. It's an all-purpose face cream that helps with anti-aging and wrinkles. I got this as a recommendation from a mentor, or not a mentor. She's more of a friend of mine that I've been working with. She's like 58 years old and she looks incredible. She looks like she's like 30, not a day past 30, same energy. And I'm like, what do you do? What, like, what
What's
is,
your secret?
like, what do you put on your face to make it look like that? Like, and
I
so,
need the product.
and she told me this product was what she's been using for the last few years. And so I've been trying it. It's pretty affordable, which I love. I got it on Amazon and I've been trying it. I'm not saying get it. I'm not saying not get it. I'm just saying I've been trying it and I think my skin's been thanking me for it. So I'll keep y'all updated.
It's you and your product era.
I know. This is that's new. And then the dermatologist guy, he said obviously sunscreen. Like that was the
Oh,
secret to
yeah.
life. That's the secret is wearing sunscreen all day,
Yes.
every day. He put on sunscreen, I think, like 5 times throughout the like 4 hours we were golfing. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. But moving forward, y'all. So what made us decide to do this in the first place? To separate and to do our own things as podcasters, as creatives. This actually started. This has been running through my mind for a bit, and me and Kenzie's perspectives are a bit different on this, and so I'm excited to share both sides. So for me, my background, I've been working in like venture capital startups, and I love doing so. I love hearing different stories. I love seeing how people are solving issues and problems. And I was just thinking about it, and I wanted to talk to more people in that space. And so, but I felt like it was something that I feel like it was going to be really tough to mesh both me and Kenzie's interests because Kenzie can do anything. Like she can blend with anybody. She has great conversations, but I also know her eyes light up when she talks to creatives and she talks to really creative people doing really cool things too. So it's like, how do we mesh these two worlds together and make it make sense? And so that's what was running through my mind. And what happened was a few weeks ago, I brought up the conversation of what that can look like for both of us. And that's when we kind of just having had a dialogue. So,
Mhm.
Kenzie, what are your thoughts on like all that? Because I was just coming from my perspective.
Yeah, no, you nailed it on the head though, because that's basically how this whole conversation started was just like open transparency about how we were feeling. And I completely agreed with Riley in the sense that, like, yeah, I do obviously enjoy more to talk to creatives and people who are in the industry that I work in because that ultimately like affects me more than it affects Riley. And even though she's like tiptoeing more into the like combining the industries, for what she's doing now, I think it's still she like she said, she wants to talk to people more in venture capital and finance and real estate and then, things outside of just creatives and, like social media and stuff. And so it was it was like we neither of us have ever wanted to hold each other back, and we felt like a big part of it was limiting ourselves because we'd have to always, both have a reason to have a person on the podcast because we had to both relate to them in a certain way or, like, wanna talk about a topic that we both could connect to, and not that I mean, we still made it work, but I think both of us knew at the end of the day, like, we were going to do best doing things that, like, we were 100%, like, passionate about. Instead of, like, someone being 100% passionate about it and then the other person being, like, 75% passionate about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's really kind of what it came down to also. But I think that I think that ultimately it was a good decision for us to do what we did because now, which what we'll talk about more is, like, what we're gonna do with that, like, not newfound freedom because we're
Mm-hmm.
both gonna be still
Like,
podcasting.
We're like it's like a
We're
divorce
like, it's like a divorce. We're children of
or
divorce.
separation.
Yeah. So sorry all the baddies out there. But, but in all honesty, like, this truly was a really good decision for the both of us, and we wanna be able to approach podcasting to our fullest potential and have that benefit us in the fullest potential. And so it's not like we're not going to be on each other's podcasts. I'm
Mhm.
still like kind of diving into that a little bit more is like I'm still navigating mine and what I want to do next. I have a lot of upcoming things happening, potential new job, you know, been interviewing like crazy, which is really good. And so just like a lot of changes in my career, I feel like are going to be happening. I can just sense it. I can feel it, not just with the podcast. And so, yeah. And Riley, you can dive in a little bit more about like what you're going to do and we can kind of keep chatting about that.
Yeah, and I'll just say right now, it's just like you put it really well. It's just that there's just conversations we wanted to have that we know
Mhm.
that it felt wrong to kind of put somebody else through it if they weren't
Yeah.
100% into it. And so this was genuinely a decision that we're like, I think we can thrive even better
Mhm.
side by side, but in different pathways.
Yeah.
And so me and Kenzie are still going to be helping each other and being a part of each other's projects. And Kenzie's always going to be a part of Baddies Mean Business. And
Mhm.
she's been a part of this. She's been this for the last 3 years,
Yeah.
practically. So it's like it's not about that. It's more of just like because we brought this experience and we got to do it together, which was a privilege, by the way.
Mhm.
Like how many people get the opportunity to do something like this that's so fun and do it with their best friends since childhood, you know?
Exactly.
But now we get to go do things and we're 100% in love with it. And we just get to bring what we're learning on either side, bring it together. And I
Mhm.
do believe we can be way more powerful that way. So we're going to definitely keep sharing how this is all going to
Yes.
go. What I'm excited about for the future, honestly, full honestly, I'm really excited for Kenzie because like she brings something to the table that I can't, and she's really and vice versa. Like I can do the same
Mhm.
thing, and so when I see Kenzie in a space that she's 100% in, she loves it. She consumes the content. She consumes that topic on her personal time, and she gets to talk to people who think the same way she thinks too. The way I see her look and how happy she is what I'm excited about seeing more of. And so that's what I'm really honestly really excited about this to do or doing this, why I'm excited to do this. There you go. um but for me, I'm excited because I would like to build Baddies Mean Business beyond just a podcast. I want it to be a community. I am beyond what it already is. I want it to be a digital community where everybody can interact with each other, attending events, merchandise. The next event that is going to happen is we're going to do a live podcast with Rise Over Nation, which is a local San Diego based podcast for Innovation Week, which is here in San Diego. Doing those things that I would do in my day job, but doing
Mhm.
it ties into what I do through the podcast and the community. So I think that's going to be really exciting. Um, I think it's exciting to also kind of intersect this world of like professionalism in creativity and innovation into of the more candid like aesthetic and energy that say like the Gen Z generation already naturally has.
Mhm.
And so I think that's going to be a really exciting experiment to kind of see how that all blends together and we bringing that perspective to the world. We all have something we're sharing. And so you can also see the new angle of what Baddies Mean Business will be in the description in this on Apple Music or Apple Podcast and Spotify Podcast and all of that. So, yes.
I think to that note, I also am selfishly excited for Riley to like what she's gonna do with the podcast because Riley's always had like an outside ahead of the game vision for Baddies. Like she's always been one step ahead with like wanting to grow community, wanting to like outward or what is the word? Like brand it out to be a multimedia company too. Like these are always been like Riley's big ideas. And I'm just so excited for her to like take them and run with them. And not that I ever like told her like, no, let's not do that. But the way that she can just not have to, you know, ask me every single detail and she can just like do it whatever way she wants. And vice versa. Same with me, like being able to take my future podcast and run with it and just kind of like do what we've always wanted baddies to become for like each other is really exciting. And I'm so excited for what we do. And I'm personally excited for um just in general, I think like I was saying previously, what's to come in my career. I just feel like I said, I'm just witnessing a lot of change happening already in my career and just what I think the next couple of years are gonna look like. Um, and I'm really excited for them.
I want you to stop and I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like what does that like in an ideal world, like this would be really interesting to look back at this episode and kind of see how things like panned out after
Mhm.
next year, 2 years, 5 years.
Right.
So like describe it. Like what that look like to you in your ideal world.
Yeah, I think biggest thing is I've been applying a lot of jobs and like interviewing a lot, and so hopefully having like a job secured by the end of the year has been my goal. Outside of like I want something that is gonna keep like allowing me to grow in the industry and work with other amazing people as well, keep connecting with people in Kansas City because I am still in a new area. And so having a job that allows me to do that and then also still like doing all the freelance stuff and then um also, I really want, like Riley was saying, TikToks and stuff like that. I really wanna, like, deep dive into content creation again, which is why, like, the podcast will eventually come in handy, having a new found direction because it's hopefully gonna be a lot of creatives. It's hopefully gonna be a lot of, like, what my half of Baddies and my, like, part of Baddies is coming with me, obviously, and so I'm, like,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to adapt that into my new podcast and, like, run with that on different platforms, not just a podcast platform. And so, yeah, I think I obviously don't this is all, like, pre all this happening, and so, like Riley said, I'm curious to know also maybe we'll do, like, a updated episode in the next 6 months to a year about, like, what kind of has transitioned and everything. And, like Riley said, like, I'm always gonna be involved in baddies, and whether or not I'm gonna be, you know, on every single episode, no, but I'm going to be, like Riley and I are gonna collaborate on the back end with each other all the time, like we always do for everything. And so just know that like a piece of my heart is still gonna be floating around with Riley and Baddies, just as whatever I apply from having Baddies and what I loved most about Baddies is gonna come with me to my new podcast or my newfound venture. So I think to answer your question, that's a little bit where my mind's at and just like excited to get like creative in a new space. And I think starting new projects in general are fun. So there's this like newfound sense for me that like we felt when we were creating Baddies Mean Business originally. It's that same desire, but now I have a little bit more experience under my belt. So I can like know what to do right this time, you know, towards the beginning and be really intentional about the way that I like or what things I check off the box before I post my first episode. And so things like that, that I'm just excited for a new creative direction and something, just a new project. New projects for me are always fun. And I'm a I enjoy starting new projects because I
Mm-hmm.
get bored sometimes really easily. Not that I was ever bored with Baddies, that is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying
Yeah,
is
let's
like
clear that up.
I yeah, let's clear that up. None of that, okay? Not that energy. I just like I want to always be trying new things and I get these new ideas and want to run with them. And so I think just leaning into that a lot in the next couple years is something that I really want to focus on because for so long I was like, well, if you start something and then you don't end up finishing it, like how I'm feeling, like I sometimes started to feel like with the idea of ending my time with baddies, like worrying about what other people would think or what, like, you know, am I going to feel like I totally just kind of threw this under the bus and, you know, quit, you could say, but like that's not how I look at it anymore. I didn't quit anything. We tried something, we made something absolutely beautiful and amazing. And now we're evolving separately with that
Mm-hmm.
same energy and space for growth that we established with baddies. And so I think that's what's also so exciting about it is that reframe in my brain telling myself like, hey, you did so much for this, and this experience alone is incredible, but it doesn't have to last forever, and it can evolve into new things and still be just as important. And like trying new projects is amazing no matter how long or in what capacity you do with it, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah,
So,
I agree. It's very exciting, and that I think I'm really proud of us for one. I'm really proud of us for the way, like, I mean, we were able to preserve, like, obviously our relationship, just like in
oh,
something
yeah.
that we've been so emotionally tied to for the last
Mhm.
few years. Because I know a lot of people don't, and I'm also really proud that we get to be excited for something that feels so new. Yet we've been doing this for a bit. It's
Yeah.
like it's there's always new projects to come, and it's always we're just getting started. Like, we're so young
Mhm.
compared,
So young.
so young, and so it kind of exponentially grows, like, the amount of people we get to talk to, because we get to
Mhm.
double it now.
Mhm.
um and that's what is really awesome about this type of evolution of a partnership. So
Yeah.
that sounded so professional. That was like this is
Like,
like
you know what I was
yeah.
thinking about the other day was the fact that, like, how much we've changed since our first episode of Baddies.
Oh yeah, girl.
And if you would have, 1, told me today that it evolved into this, and 2, that we'd be ending it, or 3, that, we'd be ending it to not ending it, but, like, separating to grow outside of, like, what we ever thought possible.
Hmm.
Like, when we made this, we were in Riley's apartment, dorm apartment at SDSU,
Hmm.
and we were, like, sitting on her bed. I remember, like, her palm tree tapestry was behind us. That was our backdrop,
Oh my
and we were
god.
recording on my little G7X camera,
Hmm.
and we were like, "We're gonna talk about college and our experience and just have it be quirky and funny because we're just quirky little young adults." And now we're like full on women who are doing
Yeah.
badass things in the world and just in our industries and thriving. Um, and what that's evolved into just with the podcast. And so it's so weird
Hmm.
because I think I never would have thought that. I'm just grateful that us ending this, or like separating the podcast, I knew it would never end if we did end it badly. I knew our friendship would always come first. That is something Riley and I, like we've said this whole podcast, is something that we're like, we'll give up everything in terms of
Yeah.
like business related, if that means like saving our friendship. And
Hmm.
so, but what I like never thought was that we would be ending it to like grow
To
in terms
do
of, like, to do the
Yeah.
same thing but separately. I would have just thought that, like, it would have evolved. If it did end, it would evolve into, like, I don't know, I think because we just didn't know the potential of what was gonna happen with Baddies,
Hmm.
and didn't know it was gonna, like, become sharing stories of these really powerful people, and now we get to do that, but in our own, like, niches, and still bring that same foundational energy of Baddies and what Baddies taught us, but in our
Hmm.
own way. And so
Yeah.
it's just like, I know we're kind of getting a little repetitive and a little redundant in some aspects, but ultimately we just want you all to know that this is like so mutual, so positive, so good for the both of us. And there's no negative energy, there's no bad feelings, there's nothing.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
just, yeah,
What's
yeah.
also gonna be nice, by the way, throwback to when we had like $30 like Amazon mics, and those were great to start off with, but
Yes.
obviously the audio quality showed a little bit there.
Yeah, it did.
Um, and so it was just I remember, I'll always remember this, and I really appreciate these memories of like sitting, yeah, literally sitting on my full size bed,
Mhm. Mhm.
just like oh my gosh, like at in the evening time we just decided to record this, and that was also when Kenzie lived here in San Diego, and
Mhm.
so that was just always going to have really fun memories, and every single episode we have is going to be a time capsule of
Mhm.
our friendship and how we've grown. And so keep following us, guys. This episode, I feel like it's for us too. Like, we're here just
Mhm.
memorializing what we've done and
Yeah.
how we spent our time. Another thing I'm excited about is that we get to just like, we emphasize more of our friendship now. Like
Mhm.
all the time that we invested in talking about the
Mhm.
podcast and like planning for the podcast, and that took a lot more of our conversations once it started. Now we just to get be like girly friends and talk about
Yes.
like, whatever we want to talk
Absolutely.
more frequently,
Mhm.
So
Mhm. That's
that's
something
a
I actually, like, I thought about, but also not on, like, the scale that you just explained, like,
yeah.
it is true. I mean, it was inevitable that when we were talking about when we were just talking that the podcast somehow came up, which is amazing because we knew that we were both so in love with it that it just naturally was always something that we were
Mm-hmm.
looking to better or to talk about, or it was just something we loved, and it still is something we love, and so it's cool to see that we're going to be able to, like, I don't know, it's just weird how it's gonna go back to kinda how it was before we started the podcast, where it's still gonna be, like, we'll have these, like, business-related talks and podcast-related talks, but they're just gonna be different, and they're gonna be like, "What new things can we do for each other? What new, like, aspects can we teach each other that we've been learning in our newfound ventures through, like, podcasting separately?" So, it's just so cool, and now, like, it's fun because when we go visit, like, we'll probably still do something for each other's podcasts, like, when we're visiting each other, and we'll probably, do something businessy related when we're visiting, but ultimately, like, we're gonna be just spending quality time that just, like, girl time. It's
Girl
just gonna
time.
be girl time
Yeah.
always.
Uh-huh. Always, girl.
Uh-huh.
I just came up with a new excuse me.
You're good.
I came up with a new idea that I want to share with you after the fact, because Kenzie, as she said, she's her timing will be correct. She is taking sweet care and intention with her next project.
Mhm.
And like I said, we still share ideas on off the mic
Oh,
with each
yeah.
other. So I have one for you that just came up during this episode.
Okay.
Um, but otherwise, is there any closing thoughts that you want as we close this out?
Oh, goodness. I think just, like, not to get sappy or anything, but just so beyond thankful for this community that we've built, and I can't wait to see, like, what Riley does with it, what I do with it, and seeing you guys follow me and my new experience and Riley's new experience, framing the podcast and reframing it, and so yeah, I think just a big thank you for all of our listeners who have been supporting both Riley and I, especially me, because I'm, technically leaving. Just beyond thankful for the community and the support and the time that you guys spend listening to us talk about whatever nonsense we want to talk about. And yeah, just like know that regardless of what I do, that I will always go back to my roots, and this will always be my roots for starting, like, the podcast, working on something else in this industry, and how grateful I am for all the experiences that I've had just through Baddies. So, those are my closing thoughts. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna miss recording with Riley all the time, but don't
Mm-hmm.
worry, we'll be on each other's pods. She'll probably be my first featured guest.
Awesome.
And yeah, this was really weird, but I'm really excited for what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
And I hopefully will chat with you guys soon
Mm-hmm.
and hear from you guys when you hop on over to mine. And I will obviously let Riley know when all of those things happen. She's going to be right on side of me when I'm, launching those things and working on those new projects. So you guys will know, I promise. So yeah,
A love letter to the baddies. Thank you,
love letters
everyone,
of
for
baddies.
supporting the both of us. And please continue to follow us, because now,
Yes.
Kenzie, there's going to be people who identify with Kenzie and they're like, I want to follow her. I'm like, and please do. Like, please do. She's going to do
Yes.
incredible things. And if you want to stay, and please stay with Baddies Mean Business too. It's going
Yes.
to look a little
Please.
different, of course. But I'm excited with what it'll do. So
Mhm.
thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yes.
This is closing out a new chapter, or entering a new chapter in Baddies Mean Business. And so, therefore, we will talk to you all next week, or I will talk to you all next week. Oh,
Bye, baddies.
bye,
Love
Baddies.
you guys.
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.